In 1999, a dead man was found in the United States. He was lying at the edge of a cornfield. It is not known exactly how he died. The man had a checkered past as a criminal, school dropout, and casual laborer. And when he was found dead, he had something on him that has kept investigators in the US busy to this day. Because in his pockets, they found 2 handwritten pages of an encoded message. And this code is still so mysterious today that the FBI needs your help, because so far no one has been able to decode it. On June 30th, 1999, a woman was driving outside of West Alton. It had been scorching hot in this town in the U.S. state of Missouri for days. Midsummer had arrived. The young woman is driving along Route 367, which runs past numerous blooming fields. But suddenly she sees something strange out of her car window. She decides to stop and get out to take a look. In front of her, at the edge of the cornfield, lies a dead man. The motorist is more than disturbed by the sight. The corpse is already badly decomposed, so much so that the fingertips have rotted off and are lying next to the body. The deceased is 41-year-old Ricky McCormick. He lived about 32 kilometers away in St. Louis. He was reported missing just 3 days earlier. Police suspect that he must have died on the day of his disappearance. However, the heat has greatly accelerated decomposition. That is why it is not possible to determine the exact cause of death. Neither an autopsy nor a toxicological report can provide any information. But the police suspect that it was a crime. They believe that someone murdered Ricky McCormick and hid his body in the cornfield. After all, Ricky couldn't drive, nor was there any public transportation that could have taken him near the site of the discovery. But who would have wanted to kill Ricky McCormick? And why? The police set about checking Ricky's belongings. A note from a nearby hospital is found in the dead man's pocket. Apparently, Ricky recently visited the emergency room there. When he shows up there, he has chest pains and finds it difficult to breathe. He suffers from asthma. Chest pains are a constant companion of his illness. Ricky's lifestyle is not very helpful either. He smokes a whole pack of cigarettes a day. What is not a good idea from a health perspective anyway is a major additional burden for asthma patients. In the United States, there is no health insurance for everyone, as there is in many countries in Europe, for example. And that's why Ricky doesn't have health insurance. As an asthma patient, this is, of course, unfavorable. Whenever he has complaints, he therefore does not go to a regular doctor's office, but to the emergency room. So, also on June 24th, 1999. But all tests go well under the circumstances. A heart attack can be ruled out. From the hospital, Ricky McCormick starts to visit his Aunt Gloria. He takes the bus to her place and stays for about an hour. Actually, the two have a very close relationship. For Ricky, Gloria is something of a second mother. But Gloria will later remember that Ricky is unusually quiet that day. On June 25th, Ricky visits the emergency room of another hospital. Once again, he seeks treatment for breathing difficulties. In the early evening at 5:50 p.m., however, he is discharged again. He had probably had an asthma attack, but he has recovered sufficiently under medical supervision. He's given medication and sent home. On June 26th, 1999, Ricky is on the phone with his girlfriend Sandra. He says that he's on his way to work. Ricky works at a gas station, but he didn't have a shift that day. He tells Sandra that he just wants to grab a quick bite to eat there. However, Ricky was not seen at the gas station that day. And his colleagues would surely have noticed if Ricky had stopped by for a snack on his day off. Where else Ricky spent that day is not known. On June 27th, he actually showed up at the gas station. It was the last time he was seen alive. 3 days later, He was found dead in a cornfield. To this day, no one knows how he got there, and no one knows how or why Ricky died. But even more mysterious is the discovery of 2 other papers in his pockets. These are the papers that have cryptology experts worldwide still racking their brains over the Ricky McCormick case. When Ricky McCormick dies, his family is not told about this mysterious paper. The relatives are only told about the letter from the hospital. The family only learns about the other contents of Ricky's pockets from the news. And that only 12 years later. In 2011, the FBI announced that Ricky McCormick had 2 more notes on him. There is a good reason for the FBI to release this information. Even the top investigators of the U.S. authorities cannot make sense of what is written on them. The 2 pages were written by hand, apparently in some kind of code. You can see long strings of letters, occasionally hyphens. Individual sections are circled. Since there are no other clues, the investigators try to decode these codes shortly after Ricky's death. However, without success. At some point, the 2 pages end up on the desks of FBI cryptologists. Actually, decoding should be a piece of cake for these experts. But they fail. The 2 pages are presented to the world's leading cryptologists and amateur investigators. But to date, no one has managed to crack the code of Ricky McCormick. No one can explain the system after the message was written. Now, of course, one might think that all this means nothing, that these 2 pages are just harmless scribbles from Ricky. But the FBI experts are quite sure that the code means something. This assumption is not explained in more detail. Maybe the investigators know something that is being withheld from the public for tactical reasons. But decoding the code is apparently considered so important that the FBI published the 2 pages in full in 2011. Its website calls for approaches and theories to be sent to the FBI. One of their leading cryptologists said in an interview, "That means something. We look at a lot of things that are gibberish, random hammering on a keyboard. That's not the case here." The strange thing is that Ricky McCormick had a significant reading and writing disability, so pronounced that he couldn't even graduate from school. According to his girlfriend at the time, Sandra, he could only write his own name. So what could Ricky have done with such a highly complex code that not even the FBI experts could crack? It's not even clear whether Ricky wrote this code himself. Because he couldn't write, there is no handwriting sample to compare it to. Some sources claim that Ricky's family said that he had been writing such code since he was a child. In 2012, however, the family of Ricky McCormick denies this claim. They say they never said anything of the kind. He just scribbled on pieces of paper sometimes, but that was meaningless. But the McCormick family is quite certain that Ricky could never have written the 2 pieces of paper in question. So, is this just a misunderstanding between the relatives and the FBI? Or is one of the 2 parties hiding something? In any case, the FBI disagrees with the family and is quite certain that Ricky wrote the notes. As an example, they point to the circles drawn around some code segments. These could indicate a kind of to-do list on which items are marked when tasks are completed. The letter S appears frequently. It could stand for a kind of space. Codebreakers suspect that McCormick's notes contain the name Seth and a few medical terms in memory of taking medication. But so far, no one has gotten much further than these suspicions. The notes are still available on the FBI website. People are still trying to crack the McCormick code. So far without success. I'll link the page in the info box in case you want to give it a try. Although the code is undoubtedly an exciting element in this case, we must of course also look at the background of Ricky McCormick, because that is quite eventful, and it could possibly hold the reason for his death. Ricky McCormick has a criminal past. In 1992, 7 years before his death, he was arrested by the police. At the time of his arrest, He had been in a relationship with a girl for 3 years, and this girl was only 14 years old at the time of his arrest. So he started a sexual relationship with her when she was 11. And not only that, Ricky fathered 2 children with her. That's why he was sentenced to 3 years in prison in 1992. But after 13 months, he was released on probation. Almost everyone around him, including his own family, agrees that Ricky must have a mental disability. Accordingly, it is speculated that he was not intellectually able to understand that a relationship with a child was wrong. There is no precise information as to whether Ricky was ever diagnosed as having such a disability. However, some sources claim that after his release from prison, he lived for a time on a disability allowance from the state. He kept his head above water in the 90s with various temporary jobs until he finally worked at the gas station. This job was not a full-time job either. Ricky doesn't earn much there. He can't afford health insurance. He doesn't have a car either, let alone a driver's license. But despite his financial difficulties, Ricky is often on the road. At least that's what Sandra, his girlfriend at the time, reports. And Sandra says that Ricky often travels from St. Louis to Florida. This naturally raises the question of how Ricky McCormick can afford it at all. He made his last trip on June 15, 1999, just 15 days before he was found dead. And after this trip, Ricky will behave strangely. We know that he visited the emergency room twice within a very short period of time, and that his aunt says that he was unusually quiet during his last visit. Ricky takes a bus to Orlando directly from the night shift at the gas station. He buys the ticket directly at the bus station. The round trip takes about 27 hours. Ricky spends 2 days in Orlando. He stays in a motel there. Sandra suspects that Ricky goes to Florida for a reason, because he smuggles drugs, and for his boss, Baha Hamdallah, who owns the gas station where Ricky works. Sandra reports that Ricky brought a large package of marijuana back from his last trip to Florida 2 weeks before his death. Sandra cannot present any real evidence. Ricky never discussed his trips or his job at the gas station in detail with her. Nevertheless, she believes that Ricky's workplace had something to do with his death. Sandra's suspicions about the gas station are not unfounded, however, because Ricky's boss, Baha Hamdallah, is no stranger to the law. He owns several gas stations in Missouri and Illinois and has a long criminal record. He is currently serving a 38-year sentence for a murder in 2000. A year after Ricky's death, Hamdallah shot and killed a customer in his gas station, allegedly because he had complained about the food he had bought there. As early as December 1999, a murder had taken place at another of Hamdallah's gas stations. A local drug dealer named Gregory Knox is said to have shot and killed a man in the branch where Ricky McCormick worked. The police suspect that Gregory Knox and Hamdallah, Ricky's boss, had some kind of business relationship. This, in turn, at least somewhat connects the drug scene and the gas station. There is another connection. Gregory Knox is said to have lived for a while in the same apartment building where Ricky was at home. Both Knox and Hamdallah have been investigated over the years, but neither of them can be linked to Ricky's death. When questioned, they claim to know nothing more about Ricky and the circumstances of his death. A check of the other employees at the gas station also comes up empty. Just like Hamdallah, Knox is now in prison for another crime. Both remain silent to this day about the death of Ricky McCormick. Incidentally, McCormick is not the only person who was found in the cornfields of Charles County. In 1995, the body of an alleged sex worker was found along the same stretch of road. She was also murdered, shot several times. 2 years after McCormick's death, the bodies of 2 women were found about 270 meters from where McCormick was found. They were also found in a field, so the area seems to be a familiar place for criminals to dispose of bodies. But none of the dead has ever caused such a mystery as Ricky McCormick and his unbreakable code. At the end of the video, it's of course up to you. What do you think Ricky was doing in Florida? Who killed him and why? And of course, most importantly, what's in the notes? Do you think that it's a real code or just random scribbles? Cases like this are always particularly exciting, of course. I'm really looking forward to your thoughts on the Ricky McCormick case. Be sure to write to me and tell me what you think of the whole thing. If you like videos like this, feel free to leave a like. That way I can easily see what content you would like to see here at Insolito in the future. Also, feel free to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any videos. Otherwise, there is not much more to say. I wish you a good morning, noon, or evening, depending on when you watch the video, and hope to see you again in the next video. Until then, ciao guys.